everyone, and thanks for streaming with us. I'm Kira Phillips. It's a historic day as we wrap up the first day of confirmation hearings for Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson. We just heard the nominee introduce herself to America. Take a listen.
And all of my professional experiences, including my work as a public defender and as a trial judge, have instilled in me the importance of having each litigant know that the judge in their case has heard them, whether or not their arguments prevail in court. During this hearing, I hope that you will see how much I love our country and the Constitution and the rights that make us free. I stand on the shoulders of so many who have come before me.
If confirmed, she will be the first black woman to serve on the nation's highest court. Joining us now with all the highlights, ABC News senior Washington reporter Devin Dwyer, from former DNC chair and ABC News contributor Donna Brazil, also ABC News contributor and former political director for the Clinton campaign Amanda Renteria, and also ABC News contributor Kate Shaw. Great roundtable. Devin, let's start with you. Your takeaways from day one.
Oh, Kira, I was just struck by the historic nature of this moment. We can't talk enough about it. 233 years in the making. And that soundbite that you just played of Ketanji Brown Jackson, I think encapsulates her ethos, and we'll hear more about it. She is passionate about making defendants in American courts feel heard, being heard. That's something that her clerks have told me she is passionate about. She writes opinions that are very accessible. It's also a trait that Justice Stephen Breyer exhibits. So she's certainly going to lean in on that. As the committee noted at the end there, this was just the warm-up today. 19 hours of questioning ahead. So this was just a taste. But the history of this day, I think, is the biggest takeaway so far.
Indeed. And Amanda, did you get a sense from Republican opening statements just how aggressively Judge Jackson will be questioned in the days ahead? I mean, Senator Blackburn, Republican from Tennessee, dove right in on her concerns. Let's listen to what she said.
You once wrote that every judge has, and I quote, personal hidden agendas, end quote, then influence how they decide cases. So I can only wonder, what's your hidden agenda? Is it to let violent criminals, cop killers, and child predators back to the streets? Is it to restrict parental rights and expand government's reach into our schools and our private family decisions? Is it to support the radical left's attempt to pack the Supreme Court?
Ooh, forget a soft launch of questioning there. So, Amanda, how are we seeing Republicans already address the historic nature of this nominee, and how hard do you expect that they're going to go?
Well, I think we saw a picture of that today, and a couple of people who are clearly showing their skepticism and cynicism around this conversation. The juxtaposition of that kind of questioning, though, with what you saw with the authenticity and the truth that Judge Jackson brought today, there's no doubt she knows what's coming at her, but that her style and her way really will be able to manage what the next 19 hours are gonna be about. But listen, today's conversation, the realness of it, the tears around it, the women that were in the room as well supporting her, gives her a very strong foundation to work from, where she is talking about her experience. She is talking about her commitment to trying to do what's right for the Constitution. And anyone that saw today really felt that as you watched that hearing.
All right, Devin and Donna, I'm going to take you to this. Another one of those Republicans who previewed tough questions. No surprise, Senator Lindsey Graham. Let's take a listen.
It's about we're all racist if we ask hard questions. It's not going to fly with us. We're used to it by now, at least I am. So it's not going to matter a bit to any of us. We're going to ask you what we think you need to be asked. And Senator Hawley, you need to ask her about her record as a district court judge. You should. I hope you do. And we'll see what she says. Very fair game.
All right, we'll talk about Holly in just a second, but just, Donna, your first reaction hearing Lindsey Graham and, you know, playing into the racist theme already.
Well, first of all, Kira, I have been around this this city and this process for such a long time that I try to let things go past me that I just simply wish to ignore. But here's what I want to say about Judge Jackson. She is in the mainstream of judicial philosophy. She's a pragmatist. Anyone who has taken the time, and I'm sure many of the senators have taken the time to take a look at her record, I have read just about everything. And it's not easy for a non-lawyer to sit and read some of the legal opinions of a judge, because quite honestly, sometimes the legal opinions read like, you know, stuff that you don't even want to pay attention to, so much twisted logic. But her writings really give you an opening into not just the case, where she lays out the facts, but then she presents the oral arguments, and then she comes down with her decision. So I suggest that the senators tonight can do a crash course in all of her many hundreds of opinions. She's qualified. She's served at every level of our federal courts. She's been confirmed 3 times, twice unanimous support, and the last time, a year ago, she had bipartisan support. She's going to be a justice for all Americans. And today, like every day in America, for someone who looks like me, we know that we have to endure some of the insults and the questions. And no, we're not going to call you names. We're not going to hurl insults. But we are going to tell you that on this long road for justice and equality for all people, that we took every step. We read every book. We understood every opinion. And even when the Constitution didn't even include us, when the Constitution denied us rights to vote, to even exist as human beings, we still believed in that Constitution, that we signed up to go and fight in wars, even when we did not have the right to come home and decide who would even make that decision. So yes, she is going to answer all of those questions from Ms. Blackburn, from Mr. Hawley, from Mr. Graham, and anyone else on the Democratic side, because you know what? When you get this far in life, by faith, as she has mentioned, you can do this with grace. And I thought today she was the picture of grace. If there's a special award next month whenever the Oscars, she gets one for grace, for character, for temperament, and being willing to serve this great country. I love her story because her story is an American story, because her parents paved the way for her, and because her parents said, because of where we are today in this country, we will be able to have a clear path for you. Today, there will be a clear path for every child in this country to grow up to do what he or she desires to do. And I loved every minute of watching this proceeding today, and I'll be watching all day tomorrow.
I know that, and I think of interviewing you so many times over the past, I think 24 years. This is a story that we never had a chance to talk about. How times have changed, Donna, and it's pretty awesome just to see how you just react to moments like this. Oh, there we go.
Kira, I got up this morning at the crack of dawn, not to go on ABC, but to go to the Supreme Court. And I took pictures with students from Southern University, from FAMU, from Howard University. These are law students. And I took pictures with them. Dick Durbin showed up and I said, there's the chair. And he took pictures with them. This is a day that every American wants to see for their child, to be able to go to law school and one day perhaps serve on the Supreme Court of the United States, where those words, equal justice under the law, those words are right there at the top of the steps. And today, I stood there with those students saying, your turn. It's your turn. Get ready.
And Devin, now it's your turn. Taking it back to Senator Hawley, specifically when Lindsey Graham mentioned him, Donna just mentioned him, and it was when he talked about the record of Judge Jackson and named 7 specific cases regarding child porn and how she decided on those cases, basically saying she went soft on these criminals. Give us a little context to why you think Hawley brought that up.
Yeah, I mean, Kira, this whole process had been going pretty ho-hum until late last week when Senator Hawley brought up these allegations against Judge Jackson, basically pointing out those 7 cases where she did sentence child porn offenders to below the suggested sentence of the federal guidelines. It turns out, though, that's actually a quite common practice. 60% of child porn offenses in this country are sentenced below the guideline. That's because the sentences are considered out of date. Judges of both parties for decades have sought to revise them, creating a distinction. Everyone agrees that any sort of crime related to child porn is insidious, it's horrific, it needs to be penalized, and it is penalized, but our policymakers have created a distinction there. So it was sort of interesting to see Hawley bring out these cases, especially since, as I reported last night, we discovered that Senator Hawley himself has recently voted to confirm Republican-appointed federal judges who had also sentenced child porn offenders below the guidelines. So seeming a bit of hypocrisy there, starting to create a stink about Judge Jackson while also supporting others. I do expect we'll see more of that questioning tomorrow, and maybe he'll back off now that he's been exposed. Kira.
All right, and what kinds of questions, Kate, will we hear about her judicial philosophy? I mean, we heard a few times a number of senators saying that she's never even really laid out a judicial philosophy. And then, of course, we're going to hear more about her role as a public defender that plays into that.
I think that's right, Kira. We'll get general questions about how she approaches interpreting the Constitution, interpreting federal statutes, and I think she will resist providing some simple label that encapsulates how she views the task of judging. I think she will say she takes every case as it comes to her. She seriously considers the parties' arguments, the precedent, history, consequences, that all of this matters and should matter to a judge trying to get to the right result in a particular case. So I expect those are the kinds of answers she'll give. She will certainly avoid giving any clear sense of how she would rule on any particular case. But I have to say, Kira, hearing her opening statement today, you know, she was a champion debater in high school. One of her debate partners described her in an interview as the Simone Biles of oratory as a teenager. So I think that she is going to be very difficult to get the best of in these exchanges with senators. She's just very good on her feet.
Well, I love anecdotes, and I also love the story of at 11 years old, her daughter writes a letter to Barack Obama and says, "Why don't you nominate my mom to the Supreme Court?" Well, it just, yeah, Donna's giving a thumbs up. It just took a little time. It finally happened. All right, I appreciate you all so much. Amanda, Kate, Donna, Devin, thanks, guys. And ABC News Live continues with our coverage of the Ketanji Brown Jackson confirmation hearing in just a moment. Stay with us. Don't go far. Welcome back. So glad you're streaming with us. I'm Kira Phillips. Well, today was the first day of confirmation hearings for President Biden's historic SCOTUS nominee, Ketanji Brown Jackson. Some of the country's top Republicans and Democrats gave their opening remarks. And if confirmed, Judge Jackson will make history as the first black woman to serve on the highest court in the land. Here she is before the Senate Judiciary Committee.
Members of this committee, if I am confirmed, I commit to you that I will work productively to support and defend the Constitution and this grand experiment of American democracy that has endured over these past 246 years.
My colleague and Prime Anchor Lindsay Davis joining me now with more on the hearing. Lindsay, you've been following this also from the very beginning. For you, what have been the key takeaways from today?
Sure. Well, Kira, first of all, good to be with you. I mean, I think that today was kind of the victory lap, as has been discussed, really to just establish for a moment and pause and breathe, as Senator Cory Booker talked about, the joyfulness of this day in the magnitude of the moment, the history of it, and then tomorrow the work begins. Although Senator Blackburn was ready to dig in today, wasn't she? You know, I think that her concerns may be legitimate and valid ones, but I do think that what you're seeing, at least from the Republicans, it's hard to attack the resume of Judge Jackson, to be sure. I mean, if you look at just her history, first of all, she served 9 years. She has 9 years of federal experience. That's more than any of the current sitting Supreme Court justices. She's worked in the court the federal court, the appellate court, the district court. She was on the sentencing commission. She was also a public defender. And so she has this immense amount of experience in the legal world, more than 30 years plus. And so I do think that it's hard for them to really attack all of the body that she brings. And while, you know, enough has been talked about as far as that she's not going to actually change the balance of the majority on the court, I think that's what's so unique here is just her voice, just that unique set of experiences that she brings as a black female living in this country, and adding that voice, that perspective, and really having a seat at the table, if you will. I think that that's so significant and cannot be understated. And as I said earlier, right after watching, when she became tearful, it was just that she was really aware of what all of this means. And as she talked about it, and you also reiterated, Kira, that the standing on the shoulders, right? I mean, because that's what I was thinking about, the generations of black women who would have, could have, should have achieved but for the knee of injustice in this country. And so here she is rising up from those ashes, and being such an inspiration of what's possible in this country.
And I was, just to follow up on that, I was just looking back at my notes, like when Senator Blumenthal says, finally we're looking and thinking more like America. And then Senator Booker saying, isn't it amazing that there was a time where you were told you were too ambitious to think about Harvard? Well, what are all those people saying now? Right. And he said, the more you speak about your story, it just exemplifies the American story. So we look at just the historic nature of what we're seeing, and it's so amazing for women of color, for women, just for America overall. But also, we know, Lindsay, tomorrow, that as she testifies before the Senate Judiciary Committee, she's going to be up against some tough questioning, like you just mentioned. I mean, Blackburn, I mean, forget the soft launch of right. Opening remarks. I mean, she basically warned the judge what she's going to be up against tomorrow.
She told her exactly how she was going to be firing. I mean, she was basically, and just to go back to something you just said there, Kira, she was the guidance counselor, basically saying, whoa, 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 I don't know if you're up for Harvard. Whoa, 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 I don't know if you're up for the Supreme Court, right? And specifically, she said here, well, you know, I'm concerned that you don't have a legal philosophy. I can only wonder what your hidden agenda is. Multiple times she talked about this hidden agenda that Judge Jackson might have, and talked about how she's praised the 1619 Project, wondering if she perhaps is trying to sneak critical race theory into the classrooms. And you've heard it's been a little bit more guarded from Senator Mitch McConnell, but he talked about how he's worried that perhaps her history as a public defender has made her more empathetic to criminals. Of course, Senator Hawley as well, talking about how she's soft on crime. So I think she knows exactly where the incoming is coming from tomorrow, and it sounds like she's been very well prepped and is versed and ready.
Yeah. Calm, cool, and collected. Lindsay, thank you. And I know you'll have a full recap tonight on Prime, and tomorrow, of course, you'll be anchoring primetime coverage of Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson's hearing right here on ABC News Live. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. More ahead. And welcome back. We have our continuing coverage now of today's historic confirmation hearings for President Biden's SCOTUS nominee, Ketanji Brown Jackson. Joining us once again with more insight, former Justice at the Ohio Supreme Court, Yvette McGee. Good to see you again. Yvette McGee Brown, I should say. Yes, it's been a very busy day, things changing by the moment. You expect things to go one way, and then you're caught off by certain questioning, and it just brings the conversation full circle. And just overall, Yvette, I know you've been paying close attention to every senator, whether it was some sort of soapbox that they were on, or really cutting to the chase of what we can expect throughout questioning. You know Judge Jackson through her work over the years. You know what it feels like to be in a position like this, because you were the first black female to take that seat on the Ohio Supreme Court. So when you look at her background and what she's about to go through, What are you expecting come tomorrow? Are you ready for fireworks? I mean, tell me your gut, what you think is going to happen.
Yeah, first let me just say, I have to say, Donna Brazile, amen, amen. I was sitting here wanting to applaud when she was talking.
Where's your signs, Yvette? You need all your signs.
Yeah, she's showing me up. I don't have my signs. But I do think there's a delicate balance here. Now, I expect some of the senators are going to try to come for Judge Jackson, but I think they're going to have to be careful, right? Because her record, like you've heard repeatedly today, this is her 4th time before this Senate committee, so her record has been looked at repeatedly. I thought some of them, like Senator Hawley, he's playing to the cheap seats, in my opinion, and I thought Senator Blackburn, it was kind of that, she starts off nice and then starts lobbing all these accusations. What I think will happen is there will be tough questioning, but I think it will be respectful as it can be, given the tenor of what they're going to put forward. But I know that Judge Jackson is well prepared to handle it. She knows what's coming. And I think the real danger is for the senators if they try to get too ahead of their skis, because this woman is credible. She's got a demonstrated record of achievement. So if they start attacking her with baseless accusations or exaggerating things they've read and opinions, I think that backfires.
And it's interesting, you mentioned that you were a little disturbed by Lindsey Graham's tone. Tell me what you mean by that. And I also noticed that you paid close attention to the fact that Graham, among others, didn't refer to her as Judge Jackson, but rather her. These are little details that you noticed. Why do you think we observe that?
Yeah, it's funny because when you are a Black woman in these positions, you can pick up some of those tropes that may be used or the dog whistles. I mean, I found Senator Graham to be kind of meandering in his statement. Michelle Child should have been chosen, or we're called racist when we try to look at their record, but they can attack our people. He was bringing up names from, years ago that people have since forgotten. If he doesn't think that Judge Jackson is ready for the Supreme Court, he should stand on this. But all of this dark money and people told him he might get a challenger and referring in a condescending way like, Senator Hawley, I hope you go after her. She is sitting right there. She is a judge. Show her some respect.
Now, what do you think about a number of senators that brought back her decisions when it came down to criminals, whether it was child porn, as you heard Holly bring up, or even Guantanamo Bay and the detainees and how she defended them? Is that going to be a tough moment for her?
You know what? I don't think it will be a tough moment for her because she understands what her role is in our legal system. And so when people start bringing up her work as a public defender, her representing somebody from Guantanamo Bay, our Constitution says they are entitled to representation. She was fulfilling her role as a lawyer. Her job as a lawyer is to zealously represent her clients. And it's very easy for people to take a sentence and cherry pick certain parts of it, but you have to look at the entire case. Look at what the pre-sentence investigation report said. Look at why she gave them less than the guidelines. I mean, that is a judge's role. A judge doesn't just rubber stamp and say, oh, you did this offense, the guideline says you get this, that's your sentence. Her job is to analyze the facts, apply them to the defendant standing in front of her based on their prior record, the gravity of what they did, the harm that they've caused, and issue a sentence that she thinks is fair and appropriate. So I think for Senator Hawley to just kind of cherry pick certain sentences and say that they were lower than the guidelines, which indicates some propensity that she's soft on crime, it's just a red herring. It doesn't mean anything.
Always appreciate you, Judge Yvette McGee-Brown, and your insight. And by the way, on that note of Ketanji Brown Jackson, one of our young producers here, Sarah Beth, found out that her favorite poem is The Ladder of St. Augustine by Longfellow. I challenge everybody to go read that poem, and I think you'll get a little more insight to how she has risen above it all. It'll be interesting to watch the next couple of days, and I know you'll be with me. Is that right?
That's right. I'll be right there with you.
Okay, appreciate it. Thanks, Yvette. And thank you all of you for joining us for day one of the confirmation hearing of Supreme Court nominee Ketanji Brown Jackson. I'm Kira Phillips. More news ahead, but we leave you now with some of the standout moments from today's hearing.
You, Judge Jackson, are one of Mr. Lincoln's living witnesses of an America that is unafraid of challenge, willing to risk change, confident of the basic goodness of our citizens. And you are a living witness to the fact that in America, all is possible.
The bottom line here is when it is about philosophy, when it's somebody of color on our side, it's about we're all racist if we ask hard questions. It's not going to fly with us. We're used to it by now, at least I am. So it's not going to matter a bit to any of us. We're going to ask you what we think you need to be asked.
So now those are 7 cases that represent, as near as we can tell, all of Judge Jackson's cases dealing with child pornography from her time on the district court, in which she had some discretion. In each of these 7, Judge Jackson handed down a lenient sentence that was below what the federal guidelines recommended and below what prosecutors requested. And so I think there's a lot to talk about there, and I look forward to talking about it.
I like the fact that you've had such broad experience in our judicial and legal system. But there are still unanswered questions that remain. I'm a bit troubled by some of the positions you've taken and arguments that you've made.
You, Judge, are opening a door that's long been shut to so many. And by virtue of your strong presence, your skills, your experience, you are showing so many little girls and little boys across the country that anything and everything is possible.
Members of this committee, if I am confirmed, I commit to you that I will work productively to support and defend the Constitution and this grand experiment of American democracy that has endured over these past 246 years.
Hi everyone, George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.